faster internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Join the revolution.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, Dame Anita Allen calls for tolerance as Bahamians find themselves on opposite sides of a human rights debate.
Calls for a referendum on same-sex marriage. That story straight ahead.
Marcus City MP Greg Moss hits out at Dame Anita Allen's comments on same-sex marriage. That story straight ahead.
Residents frustrated by frequent power outages. That and more tonight on our news.
Welcome to our news. I'm Christina McNeil. Thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight, as the country continues to contemplate the issue of same-sex marriage and civil unions in the Bahamas, President of the Court of Appeal, Dame Anita Allen, called for more tolerance when examining the human rights issue of our time.
I trust that the issue will be debated with less acrimony and more tolerance than the issues in the recent referendum, and that proponents and opponents will desist from the homophobic, xenophobic, and misogynistic rhetoric which characterize that debate. Continuing in this vein will only lead to the kind of tragedies witnessed in Orlando this past weekend.
Dame Anita presented at the 8th Annual Eugene DePuch Distinguished Lecture last night, noting that the door to same-sex marriage was already open before the June 7th referendum and remains open despite the majority no vote. The reason? She says there is no statutory definition of marriage nor any requirement that the intended parties to a marriage must be exclusively male or female. Therefore, Dame Anita says the laws of the Bahamas do not discriminate on the basis of sex, which means it facilitates not only marriages of every description, but consummation of the same.
Then arguably, same-sex, transgender, or intersex couples could not legally be refused authorization to marry in either a civil or religious ceremony, and if refused, may well be entitled to mandamus, ordering the relevant officials to grant them permission to marry.
The Court of Appeal president points out that while there is no specific right to marriage in the Bahamian Constitution, that right may be within one of the other fundamental rights, such as the freedom to association. And it is only a matter of time before this is put to the test.
It is therefore not outside the realm of possibility that some courageous and astute Bahamian advocate might succeed in convincing a court that the right to marry is located in one or more of the aforementioned fundamental rights.
Surely, Dame Anita says, the thought that depriving people of the ability to participate in everyday activities would be revolting to most Bahamians. This as she begs the question, why should sexual orientation or gender identity deprive two consenting adults the right to enter into a contract of marriage? While the issue of same-sex unions may make some Bahamians uncomfortable, Dame Anita says the truth is Bahamian society has changed. Well, Bamboo Town MP Renwood Wells feels it's a shame the president of the highest court in the land made that statement even after the referendum. He's now making a certain request. Kyle Joaquin explains.
Wells said it's time the Bahamian people and the government be straight up with themselves. He said since the topic of same-sex marriage won't go away, the government should at least let the Bahamian people address it directly in yet another referendum. Following Dame Anita Allen's comments, Wells said he hopes a plan isn't afoot to make same-sex marriage possible in the Bahamas through the courts. The Bamboo Town MP asserted that if this is the sly way of introducing gay marriage in the country, it's wrong.
The people have already decided that issue. And if you don't believe that they've decided the issue, then put it openly in a vote to the people, as Bermuda is doing, which is responsible. And then let us have the debate. Let everyone line up on whichever sides they are, and let the Bahamian people determine. They have a right to decide how they should live in their country.
Wells cried shame on the Court of Appeal president for her comments given the already tense public debate over the issue.
They are angry that you would have put these issues out there, and this whole referendum was the debate around that. The vote was no, 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 and hell no, because of how people perceived Bill 4 was supposed to bring, was to pave the way for that. So if the people have voted against it, why would you, in the midst of all of that, seek to hit that wasp nest with a stick?
Wells said while the world appears to be changing to accept this reality, an open and honest conversation should be had in the Bahamas. He added that while there were fears about Constitutional Amendment Bill number 4 opening the door to same-sex marriage, the issue was addressed indirectly and tactfully.
I do not believe that judges and even parliamentarians to a certain extent have the right to decide for a people to fundamentally change the way their culture operates. That's what law does. Law defines culture and establishes culture. Okay? I believe that the people en masse have a right to say, this is the kind of society we want to see.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, Marco City MP Greg Moss has also taken issue with Dame Anita Allen's comments on same-sex marriage. He says it's clear she has prejudged the issue and would have to recuse herself if the matter ever comes before her. Dana Smith reports.
Moss said Dame Anita's comments were unfortunate, and he questioned if she could ever be fair should the matter arise before her. Moss said even though Dame Anita stressed she was not speaking on behalf of the Court of Appeal, but only offering her own views, in his opinion, the damage has already been done.
She clearly now would have to recuse herself if that matter ever came before a court that she was a part of. It's impossible, in an intellectual sense, to divorce those comments from a sense that she has prejudged this issue.
In the lead up to last week's failed constitutional referendum, Moss established himself as a clear opponent of same-sex marriage and charged that the fourth bill would somehow open the doors to it. While noting that opinion was shared by many, he said today the people have already voiced their opinion on the matter.
And when you have a referendum having gone in the direction that the referendum that we recently had went, and having decisively determined the will of the people that the people want nothing to do with same-sex marriages in this country, it's troubling to see that kind of commentary coming from a person sitting in that position.
Moss said it seems LGBT activists are making a deliberate attempt to reject the democratic will of the country. He said having lost the referendum, activists are now moving on to the next phase of their assault on the country's laws.
But this attempt to foist upon the people this kind of brainwashing, this kind of propaganda, to change the people's will and manipulate the people's will and manipulate our culture without telling us, was rejected, and the referendum needs to be rejected as a whole.
Moss said the government needs to put in place a stopgap measure, a simple law that would make it clear that same-sex marriage is not recognized in the Bahamas. Reporting for Our News, I'm Dana Smith.
Thanks, Dana. In other news, Bahamas Power and Light today issued a statement to inform residents that they were experiencing generator problems. As a result, several areas across New Providence experienced blackouts. Giorgio Stirrup reports.
Rolling blackouts all over New Providence forced some residents out of their homes to seek relief, with some residents saying enough is enough and they're tired of the outages. Bahamas Power and Light experienced generation challenges at its power stations today, forcing the company to continue a 2-hour-long outage rotation in several areas across New Providence, including Coral Harbor, Blue Hill Road North, Prince Charles Drive, Golden Gates, and Key West Street. BPL officials said in a statement today there is insufficient capacity to meet peak customer demand at this time. Cheryl Green of Farm Road says she is sick of power outages and called on the government officials to do something about it.
They sell BEC and they still having the same problem. That don't make no sense. All they need to do is stop cutting up people's light, and then they running down people for $200 and $100. It's ridiculous. We poor and we working hard. We got rent, we got cable, we got school bills, and we got food to maintain. Some people go to bed nothing to eat. You know, just go to bed with noodles every other day. Come on, you still ain't full. The government need to stop cutting off people's life a little, $200-$300.
BPL officials said while efforts are underway to return the affected generator units to service in the shortest time possible, there is presently a generation shortfall. Customers endured a series of power outages last month. One Yamacraw resident who visited Montague Beach to seek relief on this hot summer day said enough is enough.
The Bahamas government sell BEC, right? So a new company. And we really hope the power outage would stop and cease. But yet we get more power outage and it's still the same. It's no changes.
Over in South Beach, another frustrated BPL customer said she expected more reliable service after Power Secure was engaged to manage electricity generation, transmission, and distribution for BPL. However, she said the problems persist.
But when I left home this morning, it wasn't off. As I drove further out east, And I was like, okay, the painted people say I said, current off. Then I further down, they said, their current is off. So I said, what's happening? They said, boy, I don't know. So when I came out here, I saw everybody said, what happened? You all out here? They said, boy, look here, current off. I said, this was the island-wide thing. Is it island-wide? Do you know? Wow. Anyway, well, I hope they do something about this. My fan, my freezer, and you go to BC, and they be like, bring the receipt, and then when you go bring the receipt, then they be like, how could you prove that this was done because of the outage? All that kind of foolishness, and I'm not on that kind of run, you see what I'm saying? So for that reason, I wouldn't bother no more to even go to clean. When it's like this, I just close the house up and just come out on the beach, catch the ocean breeze. That's it.
Other impacted areas included West Ridge, Village Road, Eastern Road, Sandy Port, and Delaport. Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Sturrup.
Thanks, Giorgio. Still to come.
Lawyers in the Kurt McCartney murder case give their final summations. That story straight ahead on our news.
Crime and jobs highlighted on the floor of the House of Assembly. Stay with us.